Hi everyone, it looks like folks are still joining. So I'm gonna give a minute or two more to make sure everyone who joins would like to before I begin.
Hi, Charlene.
Hi.
Hey, before the presentation starts, I had a question from our team on outreach to systems in Region 9 that are will be part of the AWIA survey.
Right.
And I guess the question was, has that outreach occurred, or will you be asking us for our assistance?
Right. So we're in the middle of putting up trainings for this fall, and the first one is in November, and it is Region 9. So early November, we just got the registration links up for that. So I'm still getting those up, but I've talked to Samantha, emailed out the registration links for the training that we specifically designed for Region 9. And in this presentation, I do have a slide where I'll be talking about that training opportunity and other training opportunities that we have. So it is ongoing. It is in the works right now.
Sorry to throw you a question right as you're trying to navigate Zoom and
totally
so
fine.
I'll
more to come on that. Okay, so it is 5:35 now. I apologize if you can hear my neighbor's dog barking through the wall. I'm working at home like everyone else, and the puppy's being crate trained. So hopefully that doesn't sound loud to you all. Okay, well, I'm gonna go.
Said if there wasn't a
right. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get started with my presentation. Hello, everyone. My name is Charlene Komondy. I work at the United States Environmental Protection Agency's headquarters in Washington, D.C., and I'm in a division called the Water Security Division. So for this presentation on America's Water Infrastructure Act, or AWIA as we like to call it, I'm going to be going over what's required in the law, who has to comply and by when, and also what resources we have available to help you all comply in the easiest way possible, including training resources, which if you heard the question at the beginning of the presentation that was asked about training, I'll also go over those live resources as well. So I'm very excited to be here with you all at the Region 9 Tribal EPA Conference. AWIA is applicable to community water systems, including tribal community water systems that serve over 3,300 individuals. And so this message is definitely going to be applicable to a lot of people attending the conference, and I'm guessing that a lot of the folks who chose to join this presentation might need to comply. So we'll get you all ready with what you need to know, and I'll help direct you towards resources so that you can go ahead and comply with this law by the deadline with no problem. Okay, so let's start out with talking about background on what AWIA is for anyone who's not familiar with it. I'm sure many of you are familiar with it. But in October of 2018, AWIA was signed into law. So it's a relatively new law. And Section 2013 of the law requires that applicable drinking water utilities conduct risk assessments and update emergency response plans. And the law, it includes components that the risk assessments and the emergency response plans must address, and it also establishes deadlines by which water systems need to certify completion of their risk assessment and their ERP to EPA. So you don't need to submit your actual risk assessment or ERP to EPA. It's just a certification saying that you did complete it and that it does meet all the requirements listed in the law. And then AWIA, it amends the Safe Drinking Water Act Section 1433, and it doesn't require just an initial risk assessment and emergency response plan. It also includes a recertification that is going to occur every 5 years. So every 5 years, you'll log back in to the same certification system that I'll talk about later and say that you reviewed your plan and updated it if necessary. EPA is also going to provide guidance to small systems who are not required to comply with AWIA certification requirements. Sometime next year, that is going to go out. So only systems above 3,300 individuals need to comply, but we will put out a resource for those very small systems who want to improve their resiliency of their drinking water facilities. And then this last bullet here, EPA is the primary agency that directly enforces Section 1433. And so when you submit your risk and resilience assessment and emergency response plan certification, that's going to go directly to my office at EPA headquarters, not to your state primacy agency or anything like that. It goes straight to us. Again, I'm sorry about this dog. Okay, so this slide shows the certification deadlines for your risk assessment based on the population that's served by your utility. For populations of the greatest size category, which is over 100,000 individuals, their certification deadlines have already passed early on this year. So the risk assessment portion was due March 31st. And the emergency response plan was actually just due at the end of September. For utilities in this medium range, 50,000 to 99,999, you need to certify a risk assessment no later than December 31st of this year. So it's great if you're in that category that you're attending this training today. There's also, I'd imagine, a lot of small systems on today in the 3,301 to 49,999 category. Your deadline is coming up no later than June 30th. And then after 6 months after you certify completion of the risk and resilience assessment, that's when your emergency response plan assessment is due. So the EPA Water Security Division, where I work, has created several resources that are available online to help systems comply with AWIA. Today, I'm mostly going to focus on 2 of these resources, the Small System Risk and Resilience Assessment Checklist and the Emergency Response Plan Guidance and Template, because I think that those are going to be most relevant to this audience at this time. But I do briefly want to mention these other resources that are available. And you can choose to use whichever resources you want. The law doesn't say that you have to use any of our resources. So these first 3 resources in these 3 bubbles, they are to help utilities with the risk and resilience assessment part of AWIA. The baseline threat guidance document helps water systems identify malevolent acts that they can include in their risk assessments. And also, it can help you estimate a threat likelihood for malevolent acts. So if you just want to do a qualitative risk assessment, it can help you identify malevolent acts being theft or chemical contamination of water supply, things like that. Or if you want to do more of a quantitative risk assessment, you can actually get numbers from that document as well. And AWIA requires that risk assessments include both natural hazards and malevolent acts, but this resource, the baseline threat guidance document, was created specifically for this malevolent acts portion because natural hazards like fires and earthquakes and hurricanes, there's already a lot of information out there through FEMA and through National Weather Service and other sources so that people can get a better idea of the likelihood that that's going to happen. But it can be hard for systems to know which malevolent acts should we be concerned with and which should we include in this risk assessment. And that is what this document is going to help you do. So this next resource that we have listed here, the Vulnerability Self-Assessment Tool, it's a risk assessment tool that helps utilities walk through the process of creating a risk assessment with an option to do a quantitative risk assessment. This is a pre-existing tool, and it was updated when AWIA was passed to make sure that it complies with AWIA. And then we're going to move on to the Small System Risk and Resilience Assessment Checklist, which I'm going to go into more detail over in the next few slides. It's basically another option. It's another risk assessment tool, sort of like the VSAT tool, but it's more qualitative in nature than the VSAT tool and can be a little easier to handle with limited time and resources. Then we also have available our Emergency Response Plan Guidance and Template to walk utilities through fulfilling the Emergency Response Plan requirements of AWIA. And I'm going to talk about that a little on in this presentation as well. And technical assistance providers, if there are any on this presentation, there's a resource specifically made for those who are assisting water systems, just to contain really useful information to help the systems that they're working with comply with AWIA. So now I'm going to dive into the risk and resilience assessment. What is it? What does the law say it should require? A risk and resilience assessment needs to include the risk to the system from both malevolent acts that I mentioned earlier, like chemical contamination or theft, and also natural hazards, earthquakes, fires, for 10 different asset categories. And here up on the screen are the 10 asset categories that AWIA asks systems to look at in order to comply with the law. So asset categories include resilience of physical barriers, source water, pipes, conveyances, water collection and intake, pretreatment and treatment, storage and distribution facilities, and all the automated systems that are used by the water system, the monitoring practices, financial infrastructure, which includes things like billing, payment, and also financial management systems used by the utility, use of chemicals, and operation and maintenance of the system. You may include an evaluation of capital and operational needs for risk and resilience management for the system, but that's not required. That is an optional component. Also, the risk assessment should consider and also address risks at any consecutive systems that could impact the water system. Okay, so that was an overview of what the law says risk and resilience assessments must need. Now we're going to look at the guidance that EPA developed, the small systems guidance that I mentioned. So this is a guidance document that came out of discussions that we at EPA had with small system technical assistance providers. Basically, EPA recognized that there might be challenges for many small systems to face in complying with the AWIA requirement to conduct a risk and resilience assessment. Some of the reasons for potential challenges is that Congress didn't appropriate a significant funding for technical assistance for AWIA. So essentially the assessments are based on what systems are able to do in-house with limited time and resources. And this guidance is intended to provide you with the simplest way to comply with the requirements in AWIA so that you don't have to get a consultant if you don't want to, so that it's possible to do in-house, and it breaks it up into steps that are rather manageable. And we'll go through that process so that you can see what I'm talking about how we tried to make it very manageable to meet those 10 requirements that I listed on the last slide. And then just please note that the guidance doesn't cover all aspects of water system security and resilience. It's very focused on the risk and resilience assessment part of AWIA. So it doesn't include the emergency response plan. There's a separate guidance document to help you with that. And there are other aspects of security that you might want to add in to make your response or your risk assessment more robust. And our website, the EPA website that I'll show you a little bit later, that has all sorts of risks, all sorts of guides and things that you can use, extra resources to help you get more information when you're putting together these risk assessments. So now we're going to talk, oh, whoa. I did not realize that I skipped that slide, sorry. I was actually talking about this slide, and on my computer, it was behind. Sorry about that. But I already went over this one. This is basically saying that the risk and resilience assessment, the small systems risk and resilience assessment checklist is voluntary. You don't have to use it. It's just an option that we made with AWIA in mind. Okay. So AWIA doesn't require water systems to use any particular standard and guidance. A water system can take any approach that you want as long as you comply with the requirements listed in the statute. The small systems checklist can be used by any size system, but it is intended for systems serving 3,300 to 50,000 people, and it's a qualitative approach. For larger systems, EPA recommends that VSAT tool that I mentioned on the previous slide. Okay. All right, so I'm going to just mention these concepts, this risk assessment terminology, so that you are familiar with these terms when I use them throughout the rest of the presentation and as you're looking through the guidance document. So threat is talking about a malevolent act or a natural hazard. So a chemical attack on a water system or a hurricane. Vulnerability is a weakness of the system that could cause an adverse impact to the facility. Consequences are focused on the public health and also economic consequences of the threat. And countermeasures are steps that can reduce the risk of the system to such an event, a disaster, if it happens. Here's a list of the malevolent acts and the natural hazards that could negatively impact water systems that EPA suggests water utilities consider when you're creating your risk and resilience assessment. You can add more though. So the small system checklist is very customizable and you can add in more if there's something on your mind that you don't see on this list. This is just a starting point, a suggestion from EPA. Now let's talk about what the checklist is. It has a set of 10 tables, one for each of the 10 asset categories that are required in AWIA that I listed on a few slides back. For each of the tables in the checklist, the water system would select the malevolent acts and the natural hazards, so physically check them off, check off the box, that they think pose a significant threat to each asset category. And as I mentioned before, it's very customizable. So if there isn't a checkbox next to a natural hazard that you're really interested in, you can write it in at the bottom. And just to note, earlier I talked all about the baseline information on malevolent acts to relevant community water systems document. This document is really helpful at this step of the process. It can help you to identify the malevolent acts. And then the second step, so you check a box and then next you write a description of how each of these threats that you identified could adversely impact that asset category. Here's what the checklist looks like. On the cover page, you just fill in basic information on the water system. And here's an example of table 1. So at the top, the table states the asset category. This one is looking at physical barriers, which refers to the physical security at the water system. The water system would check off any of these malevolent acts that they believe could cause significant risk to the system, and then they would write a description of the impacts that it could have on a given asset in this blank open box in the right column. And as you work your way through the document, it's a bunch of tables, and they're similar in form. You can see that this one follows a similar format to the first, but now it's asking for natural hazards instead of malevolent acts, and it's green instead of blue, just color coding to help you keep malevolent acts and natural hazards separated in your head. So same process as before, just this time with natural hazards. And this table, table 11 on countermeasures, it's optional. So the idea is that since water systems are going through the process of identifying threats, it might be helpful to have a table to take the next step and identify countermeasures that can be used to reduce risk just while you're at it. So it's optional, but it's just a potentially helpful step as you think about turning your risk and resilience assessment into something that will become an emergency response plan at a later date. And here's a comparison of the two tools that EPA has available for water systems to help you come up with a AWIA compliant risk and resilience assessment. The checklist, which is written for the smaller systems, and the VSAT tool, which is suggested for larger systems. The basic differences are that the checklist is a qualitative tool, while VSAT is very quantitative in nature. For the checklist, countermeasures are identified using the baseline threat document. And then for VSAT, countermeasures can actually be quantified and then used for cost and risk reduction analyses and things like that, if you're interested in that. And then the checklist, it's a paper analysis or computer. It can be done all electronically. It's a fillable PDF, and there's also a Word version. So you can just type right into it. VSAT is an e-tool, and so it can require a significant amount of time and resources to do the VSAT portion and walk through and learn the functions of the tool. Though we do have a video posted on our website of how to help you use VSAT if you're interested. Okay, so that's it. That's the checklist. And now we're going to talk about the other requirement of AWIA Section 2013. So emergency response plans, what you would do is you would take your risk and resilience assessment and use that information to create a plan for what to do if an emergency happens, if the worst case scenario actually comes true. AWIA requires that water utilities prepare or revise an emergency response plan and incorporate your findings from the risk and resilience assessment. And these are the 4 categories that make up the 4 sections of your emergency response plan. So there's strategies and resources to improve resilience, which we call resilience strategies. Next, there's plans, procedures, and equipment for responding to a hazard, which we call emergency plans. Actions, procedures, and equipment to lessen the impact of a hazard, which we call mitigation actions, and also strategies to detect malevolent acts or natural hazards, which we call detection strategies. In order to help water systems easily fulfill these requirements, we've developed a simplified template with detailed instructions that can help you to develop an emergency response plan that is in accordance with the requirements in AWIA. So the template and the instructions, it's one single PDF document that provides guidance on how you can develop your emergency response plan. And it also includes links to more information so that you can help fill in any information gaps, any knowledge that you need as you're filling out the plan. It also has a blank ERP template in Word format that can be easily modified to meet the needs of the individual utility. So if the table format, if you want extra columns or something like that, you can easily open it up in the Word document. So save the PDF on your computer, open it up in a program like Adobe, and then the functionality will allow you to click on this big button and then get the Word document out of the PDF. Here's a quick look at the ERP Template Outline. The first section requests information about the utility itself. Then it goes on to cover the 4 areas that I talked about earlier: resilience strategies, emergency plans and procedures, mitigation actions, and detection strategies. The first section in your emergency response plan just includes information about the utility, because it's really important for this information to be ready available if an incident occurs, so that you don't have to go find people's phone numbers or get in touch with important staff at the utility. More specifically, the system information includes an overview of your utility, where you just provide the basic information about the utility. Personnel information. It can be helpful to have a personnel roster available during an incident so you can quickly contact all your employees. Primary utility components, and that section is where you'd list all the components that are necessary to maintain effective operation of the utility. So that includes information on wells, intakes, treatment plants, storage and distribution systems, things like that, as appropriate. It also includes industry chemical handling and storage facilities. So industry surrounding your utility can also be impacted by incidents like accidental releases or earthquakes. And it's important that you understand what chemicals might be released in your area during an incident. And this kind of goes into, there's another part of AWIA. Today we're talking about section 2013, but this is a little bit related to another part of AWIA, section 2018. And if anyone's interested in learning more about 2018, I can direct you to those resources later on during this presentation. You also want to have safety materials and information that are easily accessible during an incident. For response resources, it's a good idea to have an accurate inventory of all available resources like equipment and supplies that you either maintain on site or have readily available off-site, like a neighboring water system, for example, that can help you out. And it allows utility responders to know what resources are immediately available during an incident. And then our last bullet here, key location services. That's things like location of a nearby hospital, for example. It's just important to have logistical medical services that you or your mutual aid and assistance providers might need during an incident. So overall, having this information readily available can help a utility immensely in the midst of some sort of a disaster and make your response a lot more effective. So this is what the template itself looks like. It has these tables that are easily customized to fit the needs of the utility if you want to put it into a Word document. This slide is showing an example of primary utility components part of the template. And this section, the resilience strategies, it contains strategies and resources to improve resilience. And this includes how you assign roles and responsibilities, identify response partners, and communicate with personnel and the public during an incident. More specifically, it covers the strategies that are listed here, emergency response roles, which is it involves an effective emergency response plan involves active participation of both the utility and external response personnel. So coming up with these roles can help you figure out that interaction between utility and external partners. Your utility can also consider integrating a standardized incident management system like the incident command system that EPA uses and is often used in other parts across the country. And that can really help with your response procedures to make them standardized. Communication. So communicating during an incident is pretty critical in relaying information to employees, government agencies, the public, all about potential risks. So planning that out beforehand can be very helpful. Contact of information from personnel and media outlets that you plan to work with is also something to put in this plan. It can include newspapers, social media sites, television, radio stations, things like that. Whoever you think would be best to use to get the message out to the public. And the risk communication portion of this, so risk communication and public messaging techniques, it's a tool that helps water utilities deal with public messaging during emergencies to enhance knowledge and understanding of an incident and to build trust and credibility, and also to provide constructive dialogue. And then public notification is the last bit. You can insert templates for public notification in this portion of the emergency response plan template, or you can reference where they could be found if you don't want to put them in the actual document. But the idea is to make sure that the templates are consistent with regulatory requirements for public notification. Okay, so here is an example that's from the template itself. We included examples like this in text, and this text can be removed or modified. It's just a good roadmap and sort of gives you a real life example for what you could then plug in for your own water utility. So the next section of the emergency response plan is emergency plans and procedures. This section is going to include plans, procedures, and also equipment that can be used while you're handling an incident. There are two types of response plans within this section: core response procedures and incident specific response procedures, and I'll give a definition of each of those next. So core response procedures, they apply to a very broad variety of incidents. They are the foundation of the incident specific response procedures because they can serve as an all hazard response that's applicable in all different types. And so here's some examples on the slide of core response procedures. You have access. It can be difficult to gain access to critical facilities if there's a fire. Physical security, cybersecurity, that's another really big one nowadays. We're all concerned about cybersecurity, including water systems. Power loss, there's lots of opportunities to prepare for a loss of power so that you can figure out how to deal with it if it happens. Emergency alternative to drinking water supplies, sampling and analysis, and this last one, family and personnel well-being. The idea is that personnel are more likely to report to duty or to stay on the job during an incident if they know that their families are going to be safe. So it's helpful to identify these types of actions that can be taken beforehand, during, and after an incident that can ensure this. And then we have incident-specific response procedures, which is the second type of response procedure that goes into the emergency response plan. And this is about a specific type of incident. So on that last slide, we had a bunch of general things that apply to all incidents. These are responding to a fire, responding to an earthquake, that sort of thing. And you might only need 1 or 2 pages to cover this information, since the core emergency response stuff that you've already filled out is pretty widespread. So you can just pick a few that are really relevant to your utility and then add in those incident-specific response procedures as well. Oh, okay, and here, this table on the slide shows a list of the different incident response incidents that we have created incident action checklists for. So if you go to this link on the slide, you can access things like this. Here's an example of an incident action checklist that EPA developed. It can be found, all of our incident access checklists can be found at this website. And just something important to note, you can use our incident action checklist as the incident-specific response part of your emergency response plan. So you can just take this document. So for example, we have our pandemic one up, but there's also one for all those other topics that was listed on the last page or on the last slide. And you can just use that. Go through the checklist, work through thinking through the response procedures that you think are best for your utility, and that can become part of your emergency response plan. So the mitigation action section is really important because it not only helps you plan for the incident, but it also outlines steps that you can take to reduce the impact of risk from future incidents that could occur. The idea is that it's more cost effective to mitigate the risks from a disaster than it is to repair damage after the disaster is already done. So these are some examples of mitigation projects: developing alternative source water options, relocating water intakes, and creating flood protection barriers. So these do require financial investment by the utility, but it could potentially prevent costly future damage and also improve reliability during a disaster. Okay, so we've made it to the last section of your emergency response plan. It should contain strategies that help you to detect malevolent acts or natural hazards. The strategies can range from really simple things like see something, say something, policies for employees, to more resource-intensive efforts like putting in sensors and cameras to monitor things in the facility. This section is pretty important because the timely detection can make a utility way more effective at responding to threats. And this slide shows examples of detection strategies and what that looks like when in the template itself. So some of the examples include strategies for detecting unauthorized entry, water contamination notification systems for a contamination event, cyber intrusion and reporting cyber intrusion, hazardous chemical release, natural hazard. So you can track severe weather, and that can help you be more efficient in your response. And power outages, you can also detect impending power outages by signing up to receive notifications from your power provider for any planned maintenance activities. So that's just an example of something that could be included as a detection strategy. Okay, so we've made it through. Those are the 2 requirements, and that I just give you a pretty in-depth look at our 2 resources that we have available. Hopefully that helps you feel a little bit better that we've done some of the legwork to help you make sense of this statute and easily organize it so that you can easily create the plans for your system. Now we're going to talk about how you certify So there's a secure online electronic submission option, which is our most preferred method, and it's also the easiest option to complete. If you do this option, you receive reminders, email reminders, from the email address that you used to certify. And the next 5 years that the risk assessment and the emergency response plan is due, you'll get a timely notification saying, hey, this is coming up, just to help you remember. Email and regular mail submissions are also available using designated certification forms. You won't get a confirmation, however. So EPA will send you a confirmation saying it's been received if it's the electronic system, but for the manual systems, the mail and the email, you won't get a response on whether you did those, so just make sure that it sends and keep a copy for your records in that case. And I just want to note, I mentioned this earlier, but be sure not to send in your actual risk assessment or emergency response plan. The only thing EPA needs is a certification form that says that you've completed it. Please keep the actual plan on file at your utility. The reason for this is that these plans often contain sensitive information, and so it should stay in a safe location at your utility. All we want is a certification saying that you did go through this process and that these documents exist and meet statutory requirements. And here is a video that I have. So let's see, 6:15, okay. We can watch some of this video on how you use the electronic certification platform. This video is available on our website, so I might cut it a little bit short so that we have more time for question and answer. But you can go on our website and watch this video to help you navigate that system.
America's Water Infrastructure Act, electronic certification process for completion of risk and resilience assessments and emergency response plans. Introduction. This tutorial will guide you through the process of certifying your community water system or utilities risk and resilience assessment and emergency response plan to the US EPA as required under Section 2013 of the Water Infrastructure Act. This law establishes certification deadlines, requires recertification to occur every 5 years. See US EPA's America's Water Infrastructure Act's website for more information. Step 1. Account registration. From our America's Water Infrastructure Act certification page, select the Certify My Community Water Systems Risk and Resilience Assessment link. Begin by...
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just stop it, but as you can see, it walks through the steps and it shows you someone going through the process, every single step from the very beginning to the very end, just to help make sure that no one has trouble with navigating that system. And also, if you're not interested in this video demo version, there's a one-page PDF on our website that can walk you through these steps as well with some screenshots. And we have help desk. We have an email address and phone numbers. So hopefully you feel comfortable using our electronic certification method. It should be the easiest, quickest way to submit your risk assessments and response plans. So here we just have the information for how to use the email submission. You go to our website, complete the fillable PDF certification document, and you can also electronically sign it. And then you just email that in to AWIA support, which is our contractor who will manually enter it into our system. You can also complete the fillable PDF, print it out, and then send it physically to this address. And this information is on our website as well. Okay, so I'm nearing the end of the presentation and getting ready to answer all of your questions. And I just wanted to mention the upcoming training workshops that we have planned. all EPA-led AWIA workshops are going to be virtual because of COVID-19. And the workshops are going to give you a little bit more of an in-depth look at the risk and resilience assessment and the emergency response plans, more than I could provide you with today. So these are longer modules. We have region-specific and sometimes state-specific workshops that are tailored to natural hazards that you would have in your region. And the ones that I'm running, so the multi-module risk and resilience assessment and emergency response plans workshops, those are split into 3 1.5-hour chunks. So 3 days, 3 different times that you log in. So we're trying not to overload everyone with a really long full day workshop, but this gives you an opportunity to work in a breakout group to talk through a risk and resilience assessment using the small system checklist, and just way more in-depth material, though I did give you a pretty good overview of some of the material that you will be seeing today. It's just there will be a lot more of it. So if you see here, some of them are region specific. So emergency response plan, that is specific to a state within a region. And then these, the multi-module, AWIA multi-module workshops, we just tailor it to the region. We put in a natural hazard example that's specific to each of those regions, but it's okay if there's extra room in a workshop that I'm putting on for a specific region, I'll open it up to the other regions. So say you can't make the Region 9 workshop that's coming up in November. That's okay. There are going to be 10 regions with pretty similar information. So maybe we won't go over fires or something that would be applicable to a lot of the states in Region 9, but it'll still have the content, the core procedure that you go through to help you learn these risk and resilience assessments and emergency response plans. So these were just planned. The registration links aren't up on our website, but we just did get them up and running, and they will be up there soon. And we'll also email it out to the EPA regions and make sure that everyone has notification when our workshops registration links are live and up on our website. Okay, so I'm at the end of the presentation now. This is my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me after this presentation if you have any questions. You can also reach out to our email inbox, dwresilience@epa.gov, with your questions that I manage and that some others have access to as well, to make sure we get answers to your questions. And we have our Region 9 AWIA contact as well. So you can reach out to Samantha with your questions as well. And then again, I work for the Water Security Division. So here's just information about the Water Security Division. If you're interested in things beyond the AWIA specific, you can ask all sorts of security related questions to this email. Okay, so that is the presentation. Thanks for hanging in there with me. Does anyone have questions? I'd like to open it up to question and answer. No questions? Okay.
Hey, Samantha, this is Greg Golson from Region 9.
Hi.
And you mentioned that the training coming up November 3rd through the 5th is a great resource for folks who want to learn more and you know, get ahead in planning. And so I think that that's fabulous. I agree. But I'm curious to know if tribes that are subject to this requirement will receive notification independent from EPA headquarters that this is a requirement and deadlines are coming up, just as a friendly reminder.
Right, so we do have a database with everyone that needs to comply with AWIA. So systems of community drinking water systems, drinking water, not wastewater, community drinking water systems above 3,300 individuals that are being served. we have a database with email addresses, and we send out reminders at specified periods. So a few months before the deadline, and then 1 month before the deadline as a final reminder. So we send that out. That being said, our database, there are so many small systems and tribal systems out there. If there is an email address in our database that is wrong or something like that, we're doing everything we can to work with EPA Region 9, with the states, to try and fill that in so that we are getting it out to the email addresses. And then for those tribes that don't have email addresses, we do a mass mailer. So we did one in the spring for the larger size systems, and we are going to do that for the small systems as well. So any water system that we have on file that has a PWS ID number and meets the eligibility requirements for AWIA, if you don't have an email, you'll get a snail mail version that says how you can contact us by email if you want us to have your email, so we can communicate more easily in the future, and requires, and it also has links to our resources like the ones that I talked about today.
Well, great. It sounds like you're taking a multi-pronged approach there to make
Right.
sure the message gets out. And
Right.
in the event there's any systems that you're having difficulty reaching, of course, Region 9 will help you clarify those emails and reach out to our contacts and just make sure everybody's ahead of the curve. So thank you for that.
Great, yes. And we'll also be putting out, we have other things too. We want to put out articles in publications. So I know I did one for California that should be going out sometime soon. So just different states. We're targeting publications in different states where we can put out these reminders and, of the, hey, AWIA is a law and some of you need to comply by it. Here's how you can do that, and information and resources and things like that. So we also have written publications that we're working on state by state, trying to get out the word that way as well. So things like newsletters and magazines, stuff like that. State associations working with the rural water associations and groups like that as well. Any other questions? If not now, that's perfectly fine. Feel free to jot down my contact information, and you can always reach out to me with questions as you're going through the process, as your water utility is working through it, if you hit a blocking point.
Hi, and I'd like to say, I know I've been saying in the group chat, if you haven't signed in yet, please do so. I have about 23 names and see that we have 42 participants. So it's important that we get everyone who's in here, who is a tribal member, to sign in. So you could drop it in the box, you could PM me, but yeah, I just wanted to put that out there. And thank you, Charlene, that was a great presentation.
Thanks. Okay, well, I'm happy to hang out if there's something else anyone wants to address. If not, I can hand it back to Vanessa and team to close out the session.
Hi, everyone. So if you guys do not have any more questions for Charlene, I'm going to go ahead and end the session. Just make sure you do check in. Oh, we do have a question from Brandy. Is this deck going to be shared? Are you talking about the presentation? Brandy, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself. Oh yeah, okay. So Charlene, could you send me your presentation after this, and then I will make sure to get it uploaded onto the session media tab on the agenda website.
Right, okay. Vanessa, I'll email you separately and we'll make sure to get that up there on the website.
Yeah. And then also this session was recorded, so we're hoping to get all the recorded sessions up on the website as well, just in case people do want to go back and if they missed something or just want some clarification. So yes, everything will be up on the website. Okay, well, I hope everyone has a great day. Thank you guys for joining the session. Thank you, Charlene, for taking time to present. We really appreciate it. And yeah,
Thank you all.
Hope to see you guys all tomorrow. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.